Joining me is a very special guest, a friend of mine, somebody I deeply respect, Grant Stern. He's the head editor of Occupy Democrats. He's someone who's been following and reporting on money trails, the shadow networks, and criminal ties behind Donald Trump and Russian organized crime for around a decade. And today, what we're going to do for you guys is we're going to connect some very serious dots. We're going to connect the dots between Donald Trump, Stephen Witkoff, and Anatoly Golubchik, a convicted Russian mobster tied directly to major money laundering operations right here in the U.S. We're going to show you how it all links back to Trump Tower, to organized crime, and how these same players now have their hands in our foreign policy, including what's happening in Ukraine right now. Ukraine, Russia, and even Iran. You might have seen yesterday that Stephen Witkoff was reportedly involved in discussions around Trump's so-called Iran plans. But you have to ask yourself, why him? Why a real estate developer with connections to Russian organized crime? Well, maybe that's the point, because if you follow the money and the players behind the scenes, you start to see that it's not Trump pulling the strings. And the people there, it's names like Dmitriev, Kushner. It's people like Woodcock serving as their mouthpieces and middlemen. So today with Grant, we're going to dive deep. We're going to get you into the inside scoop and the kind of truth that the mainstream media is not talking about, won't touch. So before we jump in, I wanted to again say, please tell a friend, restack, and if you haven't yet considered becoming a paid subscriber, it's what makes this all possible. All right, Grant. Welcome to Love Remembers. I know it's been a crazy weekend, lots of stuff
Wild
going
week.
on, but this is something that the media obviously is talking about tariffs and all kinds of stuff, but the one thing it's not talking about is this. They don't want to. There's no reporting, zero zilch, and we're going to bring it down. So tell us what's happening, brother.
Well, I mean, you said a mouthful. I just want to know what is the difference between the Russian mafia and Donald Trump anyway? Um,
It's a good
there's so
question.
much like they're kind of like this and always like stretching the hands out. So yeah, this is rather interesting surfacing of information. Craig Unger is the one who found it. Steve Witkoff was named the envoy from the United States to Russia, right, on behalf of the Donald Trump administration to further their idea of securing a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, correct?
Yep.
So he's been a real estate developer for decades and decades. I mean, his real estate company has built numerous buildings, 10 Madison. Um, you know, this is like someone who just kind of swims in Donald Trump's fishbowl, right? And the Real Deal New York, the Real Deal is a real estate news website. And the Real Deal reported that Steve Witkoff wrote a letter of recommendation to a condo for a man who was convicted in a $100 million money laundering and illegal gambling ring that was featured in a movie already once called Molly's Game,
Yep.
which was a high stakes poker game that included celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio and Ben Affleck and them all, run from an apartment in Trump Tower, one floor below Donald Trump's apartment.
Get this, folks. Trump Tower. This is where the game was being played. The people that were running it, the names like Anatoly Golubchik and Taiwanchik Trencher organization, which we'll get to,
Right.
and it has direct links right now to Steve Witkoff, who is currently
The
not only
envoy to
doing
Russia.
Russia. Let's continue, Graham, please.
So the thing is that he wrote a recommendation letter on behalf, or signed the recommendation letter, I should say, on behalf of Anatoly Golubchik, who was convicted of racketeering along with 15 others, including a multi-millionaire art dealer, as you said, his partner Vadim Trincher, the card shark, and a Chase Bank branch manager who facilitated the money laundering,
Yep.
right? And they were all convicted. They all pled guilty, and he served a 5 year sentence. I think he served about 4 years.
There's also another name I just want to throw in there that was part of that group. His name was Almazan Tok Tahonov. They call him Taiwanchik. And
Right,
why it's
Tuptunov.
interesting
He's the
because
boss.
he's the
He
boss.
was
And it's
indicted but never brought to justice.
but important, he's still on
I,
the wanted list. He's still on the United
yes,
States wanted list,
for
and
that crime
for not only for that crime, but
and
also if
others.
you,
Yeah.
if you recall, he was famous for. He's the one that fixed the Olympics back when the
Right, right.
Canadian, and important because that says how close he is to Putin. So we're connecting the dots so people understand this is a direct link to Putin fixing the Russian Olympics for Russians to win the gold medal, getting running poker games inside
It
of Trump's
doesn't get more
tower.
Putin-y than
It,
fixing the Olympics, does it?
exactly. So go ahead,
So,
continue, Grant.
so I mean, his boss, Tokatunov, comes into the story a little bit later. We're almost there too. So, so anyway, Witkoff writes the letter for him to buy a $5 or $6 million apartment on the Upper East Side. And then, of course, Golubchik gets, convicted. He has to forfeit the apartment. The Real Deal reports on it, and Witkoff said at the time, a friend recommended the Russian
That's a good
mobster.
one. That's a good one. So he
And
says
who
a
could
friend.
this
Who's the
friend
friend?
be? Now, in all fairness, it may not have been Donald Trump. A name that people probably haven't heard for a long time, but someone who could very likely be that friend would be Felix Sater, who was Donald
Felix
Trump's
Sater.
agent, a
Yes.
part of the Trump organization, the man who sold the Trump brand name for the better part of a decade
Yep.
while he concealed a felony scheme that he committed with the five families of New York and the Russian mob,
What was
and
didn't
then
his card? Didn't his
turncoat.
card say personal assistant to Donald Trump or something like that? Like
Felix Sater. He was
Felix
the
Sater, right?
personal
Well,
mobster to
I
Donald
know
Trump.
Felix very well. I grew up with
I,
Felix. I worked with his dad. I mean,
I've reported on Felix. I've had discussions with his lawyer. His lawyer wrote me a letter, said, remove that post or we will taking legal action. I declined. And I've even talked with Felix Sater. I actually spoke with Felix on Clubhouse a couple of years back. And that is quite the interesting recording. We should listen to it sometime,
I mean,
Lev. What do you
we
think?
should, you know what, for those of you who don't, I grew up with Felix back in Brooklyn. Know his father, him very well, done business. I did lots of stories about, when Felix got arrested, Felix ran to Russia, Felix then became an informant. A lot of people don't know that Felix handler in the United States was Andrew Weissman.
Yes, that's right.
Andrew Weissman, and so
Well,
a lot
at
of
the
the
Eastern
story,
District
all of
of
the,
Brooklyn.
there's a lot of moving parts, and a lot of that comes
Well,
into it.
how about this? Who was his boss in the Eastern District of New York, EDNY's federal prosecutor's office? Who was the U.S. attorney during much of this time when Weissman was handling Sater?
Remind me.
Loretta Lynch.
Loretta Lynch, exactly. That's right.
So quite the
That's right.
interesting group of characters, very well known folks, and I mean, without taking too much of a Felix Sater detour here, there's a big controversy, and I wrote a series of articles about it, that they violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act by hiding Felix Sater's conviction and his sentencing to avoid the Crime Victims Restoration, whatever, Restitution Act. So Sater, I mean, maybe he's the friend. Maybe Donald Trump is the friend. I mean, we're thinking about people that Witkoff knows. We don't know who,
One of the things that's very upsetting, and this is what is important, and I'm glad you're breaking it up, is that how come the media is not asking Witkoff who was that friend? Who was the friend
well,
at the
this
time?
is all just coming out. So I think that
Right,
it's just going to
exactly,
happen
because
soon enough. Somebody's going to
exactly
ask it at
because
some
we're
point. Yeah.
because the media's not talking about it. We're breaking it here for you guys first, and when the media starts talking about it, you'll already have known who's that friend, because that's the question we need to find out is who was that friend you wrote that letter for, Steve Witkoff?
Who's the friend? I mean, that's a great mystery, but it's funny because I saw Stephen Witkoff come through the news, the local news here in Miami, very hyper local, like local business news. I mean, Lev, how many publications do you subscribe to, like news journals and newspapers and
Not too
websites
many.
and stuff? Not too
Not too
many?
many. I've been, dealing
Because
with social media
I
lately.
mean, I subscribe to like the Miami Herald and the Tampa Bay Times and Detroit Free Press and or no, Detroit News and the Philly Inquirer and all these random places, right? But one that I've had forever is the South Florida Business Journal because, business stuff.
Right, South Florida.
My home. And Steve Witkoff came through the South Florida Business Journal because he's taking over a multi-billion-dollar project on Miami Beach. And he's taking it over because he got an $85 million loan from Chase, and he's partnering as well. So he's taking the old developers as his partners with the Blavatnik family of Access Industries. Remember them?
Nice. The Blavatnik family. This is getting even more interesting.
Yes, Len Blavatnik attended Harvard as got his MBA there, became an American citizen, became a British citizen, and it's interesting because Len Blavatnik's representatives, when we were reporting on him in past years, spent a lot of time, invested a lot of time in trying to make sure that everybody knew he wasn't Russian. But I found like his old biographies on
Oh
his
yeah,
old
he's yeah,
websites.
he's
They said he's
definitely yeah.
Russian.
Oh,
He
absolutely.
no, he claims to be Ukrainian. Maybe he's from Ukraine,
Well,
but
it was so
you know,
it was the Soviet Union back then. It's like when
exactly.
I was that's
But
why
right, he's
Ukraine
from the
Russia was
Soviet
the same
Union.
thing.
But yeah, well, you kinda yes, as you know. But all the same, it's just he was very upset about being called a Russian oligarch, Mr. Blavatnik. And he bought Warner Music. I mean, he is an American citizen, but he earned $7 billion from an oil deal with Putin. And someone, I think it was the PolitiFact folks in Wisconsin, who said, "Well, he's not pro Putin." I'm like, "Come on, man!" Like Vladimir Putin doesn't just stroke everybody's $7 billion checks for the oil company he sold them for $300,000. You know,
Just think about it. Let's stop for a second. Let's talk about before we get into some other names and some other people. Let's talk about Steve
Galupchik
Woodcock
and
and
Witkoff.
Steve Woodcock,
Yes.
yeah, and Golubchik. So first of all, let's talk about Steve Woodcock. I mean, here we have a real estate developer that really has zero experience that we know of, or that anybody has reported on in international dealings, except for building maybe a building on Miami Beach or New York or somewhere like that. And here he is with his first job, getting being announced as special envoy to the Middle East.
Right.
So while he's special envoy to the Middle East, he's being sent over now to Russia to meet with Vladimir Putin. Everybody was like, "Why is this guy? He's the Middle East envoy. Why is he going to Russia? What is he doing
Well,
with Putin?"
here's the thing. I'm going to say this, Lev, in
And
the
by the
nicest
way,
way
I agree with
possible.
you. You need an org chart. We know, and you know what? For my Substack subscribers, I'm gonna put something together and try and do some sort of org chart for you guys to have, be able to
Yeah, we
connect the
need like a
dots and
pin
follow the
board for
names,
this chat.
pinboard. Because yes, the names but we're gonna break it down. We're gonna take our
But
time, and then
but
we're
check
gonna
this
have to
out.
go. Yeah,
So Lev, I mean, I hate to break this to you, but Steve Witkoff has a whole lot more money than you do, so that's why he got chosen.
yeah.
Otherwise, Donald Trump might have called you again. I mean, I think he did a bang up job as an envoy, but they didn't give you the title. What's wrong with Trump? He should have really thought this thing through. Um, I mean, that's what's going on here, as you well know. All the same shit that crazy stuff that he was asking you to do. He's just having Witkoff carry the water right in front of everybody because who cares, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's the difference, and I keep saying it. I mean, back then it was a shadow diplomacy run by Giuliani with me and others involved in it, and that's why I wrote the book Shadow Diplomacy because
Now
that's
it's
what
just a
you.
black joke on American
Yeah,
diplomacy.
and he back then he tried. He didn't want Bill Barr. There was others in there. Even though I don't like him, I don't agree with them. They're as crooked as you could as Donald Trump, but they were not on the same side. They were still, So he tried to go around them. Today he has all the loyalists to play. He doesn't need to, and that's why you got a guy like Steve Witkoff running around with a cell phone on a signal in Moscow, in group chats over here, talking about how we're bombing the Middle East, the Houthis, while he's the special envoy to the Middle East. Then comes back after his meeting with Putin, goes on Fox and talks about how Iran now, might have some sort of nuclear weapons, and then today, after getting his ass handed to him by Trump, comes back on and says, "No, we're gonna have no what's going." So this guy is all over the place. You would think that. If you take a look from the outside, you say like, he's overmatched. But I think there's a reason why Trump sent him there. I think the relationships are deeper and wider because if you remember going back, and Grant, you reported a lot of this back then when the doors opened up between the former Soviet Union and Russia. I mean, all this oligarchy money had flooded basically into real estate. and into the United States. I mean, from cash deals to buying up as much as they could. That's how they were laundering and washing all this money for Putin, basically. I mean, for the Russian oligarchy. So, I mean, you're talking about now you have guys that are in real estate, not only Trump, but now you have Witkoff, which probably might be even bigger in real estate. Magna, I spoke to
Well,
Michael
it's
Phelps.
not even that they were laundering it in there. They were just sending it there for safekeeping. Think of it this way, right? This real estate professor at Florida International University, uh, it told me something kind of enlightening one time. He said at a conference. I mean, I was everybody, but he said that South Florida's real estate was an export market. The condo stays here, but we're exporting the titles of these things all over as if it's like a stock market. And for a lot of borrowers or buyers, they're just parking their money here to keep it safe and as a currency play more than anything else. They don't even care if it goes down in value 50%. So it creates a weird market where you're exporting the title of your real estate all over the world. And that's what these guys are doing with the Russian buyers. The Russian buyers wanted to put their money into a strong legal jurisdiction outside the reach of Russia. They wanted to hedge against the ruble losing value because let's face it, unless you're the euro, the dollar, the yen, the yuan, a few other currencies, the currencies are very subject to fluctuation, change, and currency risk is a big deal. So if you're parked in rubles, you want to be in dollars. I mean, buying that $1 million apartment, even if it's worth $500,000 in 5 years, it might be worth double the price in rubles when you cash it in. So
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you
big
100%.
market
And
and
that
just
was a huge
flight
market.
capital, safety capital. And America's status is the biggest tax haven in the world, which people don't realize. People foreign income is not taxed here, and we don't recognize other foreign tax jurisdiction anything. um, we're a big haven for flight capital. I mean, we suck the capital right out of countries that are less stable for that reason. At least we have, with the political instability we have now. America's status in that regard is extremely threatened. That's why Donald Trump blinked on tariffs, not because of the stock market, not because of the advisors, not because of people paying him, but when he saw that the price of
Bond.
bonds,
Yep.
right, was dropping, the interest rates were rising at the same time as the stock market was crashing. He put two and two together and realized, okay, if I let this go a couple more weeks, there's not going to be an economy left. I mean, somebody asked me, what do I tell my neighbors? This is like a week and a half ago, like 7 trading days ago
Yes,
or
the
eight
bond
trading
market will
days ago.
suffer. Absolutely.
In other words, like maybe like this is about one. Let's say in Donald Trump news cycle years, it's about three of them. Um, she said, "What do I tell my MAGA friends who are convinced that tariffs are going to save them from everything?" And I said, "Just let them know that if the stock market has about 20 more days like this in a row, we won't have a stock market left."
Oh, absolutely. People don't understand. And it's funny because I reported on it. I said in my Substack letter to all my subscribers when I told them about that Donald Trump is going to use this spike in the market. Not only there's a lot of reasons it was done, not only for I believe market manipulation and other people's getting rich. Also, it was a message. It was a tool that he used. Even a couple like yesterday in the Oval, he was sitting there and said we had the biggest spike in the history of the stock market, trying to bullshit, excuse me for my language, to the people and the public and to the American people out there saying that, oh, everything is
Well,
great. Meanwhile, the real
Lev,
losses.
Lev, isn't there one talent that Donald Trump's acolytes have to have over all others? And that talent is that they have to be able to look the American people in the eye and tell them it's raining while they're pissing on their legs. That's it.
100%. So, Grant, I know we've spoken about these guys, but
Well,
there's,
let me
yeah,
keep talking about Golubchik because
yeah,
Golubchik and
yeah,
Trencher
yeah,
have
we need
quite
to
the
really,
interesting story. Um, they were arrested in 2013, in April of 2013, right? And then, like a few weeks later, and by the way, when they went to pop Trencher, when they went to arrest Trencher, I think it was in Trump Tower. I'm pretty sure that he ran and went to the Taj Mahal. It was either he went from the Taj Mahal to Trump Tower or Trump Tower to Taj Mahal, but I remember that being kind of a funny part of the whole thing. Um, But when they went to arrest, they arrested a trencher, and then like within a few weeks, Donald Trump hosted the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow. You know, the one with all the
Right, the
allegations that were
supposed P tape, right?
disproven about the P tape, but
Right.
everybody did believe a P tape existed that was fake, and they were
Except
all
for
trying to
me, I
chase it
always said
down.
there was, I always told you there was no P tape, Grant.
No P tape, but everybody thought there was, and that's
Yes,
that's from the
yes,
Mueller
yes,
report. I
yes,
mean, Michael
yes, yeah,
Cohen told me it's a it's a
yeah,
real fake P tape everybody believed existed that didn't exist. Got that? So at that particular Miss Universe Moscow, the very infamous one, that was where their boss, Golubchik and Trincher's boss, Taiwan chick, attended. I mean, here's this man who has been indicted in the United States only a few weeks earlier as the head of a major international money laundering crime ring, extortion ring, racketeering, and he's at Donald Trump's event.
yeah.
Pretty wild, you know? So, I mean, it's one of these things like, who knows what these guys know, but certainly there's a lot of like little dots on the chart that say they're all kind of friendly there. And the whole thing with Witkoff happened a couple of years before Golubchik got popped. And since then, I mean, Trencher, I don't know what he's doing, but Golubchik lives in Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, in a very nice condo, by the way. I have it on good authority. It's a very nice condo. And he goes to the social club occasionally. He's neighbors with fine, fine individuals, let me tell you. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's just when you think about it, like, this is a very direct tie to Russian organized crime.
It doesn't get
I
any more
mean,
closer than that.
right, it doesn't get too much close. I mean,
So,
this guy is only one step removed from one of the bosses of organized crime, like the
and
ultimate bosses of
and
organized crime.
yeah, that I met back in the day, back in the '90s when it's still when right before the fall, Taiwan Chicken, and when he wasn't the boss of bosses, when he was just regular, when they were all regular criminals growing up in the world before Putin took over and became in charge and gave them all the power of the oligarchy and transformed them because before that they were criminals, gangsters, all kinds of stuff like that. And then when Putin,
And
he
let's just
legitimized,
make sure everybody knows, if you're really into this, if this is like your thing, we're talking about Taiwan chick, not Hapon chick.
Yeah, now you punch it right, which will break. Well, one of the things I see a lot of you are asking, and I understand
Who's
confusing
Hapon chick?
names.
They're all
Oh,
asking.
right. Everybody's asking names, org chart. I promise you, later today, what I'm going to do is once we're done with this, is I'm gonna sit down. I'm gonna write a full outline Substack for all of you out there to break down. I'll try to put together a little org chart. Try to put a little bit of the names so you can connect the dots of what we're talking about, what Grant is explaining to you. So this way, as the news starts breaking and you start watching it, you'll be able to know what's going on and know who the players are. So definitely, I'll put that together tonight for you guys.
And what I would also say is that Wendy Siegelman has done some incredible work with these kind of org charts, making sense of all the different corporate shells. And this whole group of folks has some connections between them, and like guys like Andy Kuchma, aka Andrei Artemenko, a fellow who hired Rudy Giuliani, who registered himself as a foreign agent, right? Because he was an Ukrainian citizen. Didn't he
The
take
peace plan.
Canadian
He's the one that brought
citizenship?
the peace plan
He brought the back
To
channel
John
peace
Jr.
plan to Michael Cohen, right?
with
And
Michael.
Michael Cohen posted a picture of this thing, and I think it says like Putin approved on it. Basically, I'm not remembering
Just
all of
think
this,
about
but
this,
it
folks.
said
This is
from
like
Surkov.
telenovela. It's like
Yes,
telenovela. It's like you can't make this up. I mean, it just goes around in circle. I mean, this is the same like squads. That it came from the '90s to 2000 to 2000. Now we're in 2025, and all these people have graduated now to basically run countries and run our country, and that's the crazy part. Insane, insane, Grant. Go ahead, brother.
I mean it just shows you how well qualified. I think. Look, honestly, Lev, I hate to tell you this. Witkoff is so much more well qualified than you because he's really connected to the big high bosses in a way that you never were. And I'm sorry, Lev. I mean, you didn't have the big boss connections. You really you missed out. You missed out.
it's
It was
crazy,
a
but
nice try though. It was a nice try.
But you know what, Grant? I'll tell you. Let everybody take Steve Woodcock and his ties and put him aside for a second because we're going to go into another couple of people, and then we're going to try and connect the dots and tie them all together to what's happening right now in the Russia-Ukraine conflict that you're not hearing in the media, that you're not seeing, that nobody's talking about, except for just recently you might have saw the Sunday Palm bombings, Trump saying it was a mistake. We're gonna get into crazy, can't believe it. So the name I've been trying to keep telling everybody out there that I want everybody here is called a gentleman by the name of Dmitriev. Andrei Dmitriev. Who is Andrei Dmitriev? Let's discuss it. He's the head of the Russian Sovereign Wealth Fund with extremely
No, you
close
mean
ties to
Kirill
Putin.
Dmitriev?
Kirill, I'm sorry. I mean, Andrei
I was
Kirill.
when you said Andre, I was like,
Because you
oh,
said
this is
Andrei
a.
Kuchma. You said Andrei
Now,
Kuchma, and
if it makes you
it
feel
got stuck. Kuchma
if
got,
it
I
makes you feel
apologize.
any
It's
better,
very
I have
important.
a
Thank you.
remarkable history with
Thank
Mr.
you.
Dmitriev and the Russia Direct Investment Fund. I
Oh,
really
really?
actually, yes, their lawyers and PR people reached out to me and corrected my article and fact checked every single thing. When I said that he does corrupt deals and all this stuff, they're like, yeah, you don't have to, yeah, that's fine.
Wow, I didn't even know that, Grant. So I can't wait to,
Yes,
yeah, give us
yes,
the
I
scoop
have
of
to
the left.
revive that article. I think it's on my authory page, but I got to find that one for you because that's a ridiculous article. That's one of my all time favorites. I mean,
Well, this is an important name, and that's why I want to fill our
yeah, let me
viewers
tell
and
you
our
a little bit
subscribers.
about him.
Yeah,
Wait,
go ahead,
let
Grant.
me tell
Yeah,
everybody.
go ahead,
So, I
please.
mean, he graduated with a Stanford MBA. He's very
Yep.
educated. He didn't come from like a family, like he earned his
He was born in
place.
Kiev, Ukraine. He was born in
Yeah, yeah.
Ukraine.
And then his wife became friends with Putin's daughter.
Best
And
friends.
so that besties, right? And so that kind of helped make his star rise. And this was the guy who flew to the Seychelles Islands
Yep.
back in 2016 after
Yep.
Trump was elected before the inauguration, which, by the way, I think is like a 16-hour trip, even from over there, a 12-hour trip. It is not a short hop to have a meeting with Eric Prince, Kirill Dmitriev. So he
And,
is, yeah,
yeah.
he's quite the player.
And don't forget, between him and Kushner, the private meetings they had and the back channel conversation they met in Saudi Arabia back in 2017. Since 2017, they've been very close.
That's right.
And so there's these are the main players. This is, folks, who is running the show right now, not Donald Trump. These are the people behind the scenes that are actually making the plans, making the moves to dissect Ukraine up, to basically destroy a sovereign country and to genocide the people there, because that's what is happening.
Well,
And but
there's
yeah,
another guy that the Wall Street Journal reported on who I had heard about, but I hadn't seen a picture, and he's certainly been surfaced a lot more today than he was in the past, which is a man named Sergei Beseda. He is He's not the head of the FSB, which is Putin's internal and near abroad security service, basically the successor to the KGB's third directorate. He's not the head, but he's the head of basically the information section. And this guy Beseda actually has direct links with Putin. The Wall Street Journal did a huge expose on him and his role, not only in the recent talks with the Trump
yes, Betsy
administration, but
DeVos says Eric
but
Prince.
he was the point man in the big prisoner swap that the Biden administration pulled off last year, or actually a couple of prisoner swaps. So he's a real key guy who's kind of surfacing for the first time. That's a
Interesting.
very interesting development that they would, bring him up there because this guy strikes me as one of those like very important career service folks that just like in the Trump the circle, the ones that stay anonymous stay forever, and it's the same with Putin. So why is he suddenly going from kind of semi-anonymous to a name? Nobody knows.
Oh, absolutely. And folks, now you're starting to understand, because if you go back a few weeks, even a month ago, when the Ukrainians, when Zelensky came out and started making comments saying that Russia is in Trump's ear, that Trump is talking Russian talking points, this is where it was coming from. Steve Witkoff. A lot of you didn't understand back then. A lot of you didn't connect the dots and didn't understand, because he was not even officially the Russian envoy at the time. It was, I think, Kellogg at the time, or to Ukraine. I'm sorry, not to Russia. I think he was official. His only title was the Middle East, so nobody even understood why he was there and what he was doing there, and meeting with Dmitriev in the meantime. Also, don't forget
Right.
that Kirill Dmitriev was
He
here
was
in
the envoy
Washington
to the Middle
D.C.
East, and going to
Right.
these meetings about Ukraine in Saudi Arabia. Ah, whoa, hey,
Correct.
there you go. It's
Correct.
kind of like,
Correct. Correct.
and then
And
all of a sudden he
Dmitriev was
turned up in
there.
Moscow, right?
Right, and Dimitrov Kirill was here in Washington D.C. just a few weeks ago, in the Oval, me bringing the plan basically that we discussed that broke over the weekend, where they were trying to take over basically all four regions of Ukraine where they are right now. So it's incredible to see how the media
Well,
here
Lev,
though
the
grant
back channel
zero.
plan, the back channel plan has come such a long way, don't you think? Now you just send the back channel guy instead of going to the Seychelles to meet with the guy who has to meet with the guy that meets with the guy. Now you just send the guy who's going to the
Right,
Seychelles right
exactly.
to the front door of the White
Right there, brother.
House.
I mean, I had to fly to Vienna to meet with the guy, to meet in Vienna, then to pass the message over to Russia, and then go to Ukraine. That's how we did it back then. And
Still one of my
the
favorite Billy Joel songs, by the way.
but now, I mean, you just fly, get on a plane, go to Moscow, meet with Vladimir, and chop it up, and it's incredible. But with all of that said, I just want to say a little. The great thing about all of this is that it's not the same Ukraine, not the same Vladimir Zelensky, and not the same EU. Donald Trump, with his crazy antics and with his sociopathic and narcissistical ways of trying to do it by destroying the relationships and pushing them into a corner. It's like you say, don't put a rat into a corner, might bite. Jump at you and stuff. They have these sayings.
You know, everything Donald Trump does, he's like, hey, you know what? I'm going to smash this glass table. You say, but it's cracked now. He says, well, it's not broken yet, is it?
and then he's the only one that could fix it. And then when he can't fix it, he blames everybody around except for
Right.
himself.
And
And then he
then
distances himself.
Democrats
He
are going to
doesn't know
need
these people. He doesn't know. It's the same routine. It's
right. And then
incredible.
Democrats will need 4 years to fix it. And by the fourth year, when everything is fixed, Republicans will have convinced everybody that it's terrible and it's all Biden's fault. The end. I mean, no matter who's in office, that's the brilliant part. It's going to be Hillary
Yeah.
Clinton's fault for the rest of our natural lives. We're going to be 85 years
No,
old
as
with
far as Trump's
Republicans
concerned, it'll
complaining
always be
about Hillary
Biden.
Clinton.
With Trump, it'll always be Biden. I can promise you that. I think on his deathbed, Trump will be talking about how Biden screwed him up because he is so obsessed. I even remember back in 2019, his biggest fear was Joe Biden. Even though Joe Biden did, I don't even think he announced at the time yet. I don't think, or if he does, he was way below. I mean, he wasn't even like projected. And he still was so obsessed to making sure the only person he couldn't possibly lose to. I remember them talking was Joe Biden, and then he lost to Joe Biden.
And you know what?
and then he lost,
Let's be
and
real
then he
here.
lost to
He would
Joe
have
Biden.
lost to Joe Biden again too. He would have.
Oh, I think so. Also, I agree with you. I think that's
I
something
think I
else.
think Joe Biden picks up enough of those swing voters
Oh,
in those
absolutely.
key states. I mean, we're talking about three states, that he needed to win. And I mean, I'm sorry,
Listen,
politics is about
listen.
branding.
I,
And
I'm gonna
the
I'm
big
gonna
problem
say
with
it, bro.
Harris was that she was still introducing herself to the United States people a week before the election, and that's just a fact. That's not her
Yeah.
fault. She didn't do anything wrong. But it's just
It was no, you know who did something wrong? Who let the people down? Not the Democratic voters, not the people that went out there and stood there and voted their part, but the hierarchy that did all of that shit that they put together by pulling him off the ticket, putting her on the ticket, going behind the scenes, all the diversity 2 months prior to the election. I mean, they basically handed the elections to Donald Trump. And then everybody disappeared and went into hiding and then left it all for us to unravel and sit here and fight against. I mean, and the sad part, Grant, that I keep bringing up and talking about, where are the guardrails? I mean, these people obviously, and
okay.
these
Listen,
people,
man, the
but these
guardrails
people
are gone,
obviously,
and they were
no,
gone
but
before
listen,
this election, and
but
nobody could have
listen,
conveyed that.
no, but listen, no, but Grant, listen, we the people trust in our elected officials to protect us. They obviously understood who Donald Trump was. They understood the power that they were giving him, and they basically, I don't know, just left it to him and for us to deal with. So, I mean, look, that's for maybe another day, another conversation, but
Yeah, it's a much
he,
longer
a
conversation. But
much
Lev,
longer
I'll leave it
conversation.
at this: never bet against the power of stupidity.
Oh, I agree with you. And never bet against the truth also, because the truth will prevail, especially when we got the receipts. And guys, listen, first, Grant, thank you so much for coming on and giving us the rundown. I know me and you are going to be working on some things behind the scenes to come up with maybe a much deeper dive in this stuff before, because the media is not going to report it. And by the time they report it, they're going to water it down, wash it down, and try to make it seem like it's no big deal. But we're going to bring you the facts because there's much more to it. We have people in Russia, we have people in Ukraine, we have people all over the place, friends and associates that are working and getting us the news because we want to bring it to you, and because it's your subscriptions and it's your support and that keeps us going and keeps us making sure that we're able to fight this tyrant. So I want to thank everyone for the support. Please go support Grant Stern, subscribe to all the independent journals, because also keep in mind, a lot of you know Aaron Parnas, my son. He's one of the top independent journalists, not only on Substack, but all over TikTok. The Midas guys, another group of great guys that do, Occupy Democrat. These are groups out there that right now are being targeted by Donald Trump. My sources are telling me that some of the things that are happening inside, that he's literally talking to people inside his administration to not only go after the CBSs of the world and the big networks, but to go after, independent journalists, whistleblowers, people, not only that report the news, but especially people like myself that come out there and try to give you the inside scoop or tell you the stuff that actually happened and bring the receipts, because he doesn't want you to see it, and that's what he's doing. And remember, I'm not a free guy. I'm still under DOJ, Donald Trump's DOJ. I sit here under supervised release, but I do it because of your support and because of your subscriptions and because of you. It's important for us to say our democracy. So please support Grant, support everybody out there. And if you can, your paid subscription mean everything to us because it keeps us going. And I'm going to thank you. And today, I promise you, I'm going to put together the Substack letter to connect the dots of everything we spoke about today, and try to get you more in tune, and then stay for the next Lev Remembers, because we're here for you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.